Welcome to Programmatic Untangled, New Marketing Institute's monthly podcast. This is the show where we'll be discussing digital advertising's most mysterious topics, from education on programmatic, big data, and audience management, just to name a few. I'm your host, Harry Duran. Join us as we tackle the mysteries of the ad tech industry together. Welcome back. In case you missed last month's episode, we had a really interesting and wide-ranging discussion on the future of programmatic with the CEO of MediaMath, Joe Zawadzki. Joe is truly a pioneer in the online marketing industry. Given Joe's diverse interests, it's not surprising that we started off discussing the similarities between programmatic and quantitative analytics. He talked about the inspiration behind MediaMath's Terminal One platform and why more and more leaders are adapting to omni-channel marketing. We also delved into the importance of understanding the growing AI influence and Joe's thoughts on header bidding. Make sure you check that one out. This week, we speak to Anna Chan. Anna is the Regional Managing Director of Amnet Asia and is responsible for setting up Amnet operations in Asia. She possesses over 20 years of advertising and digital experience in Asia Pacific and has held leadership positions in various companies including iClick Interactive, Leo Burnett, and Yahoo. Anna also regularly speaks at marketing conferences such as AdTech and ADMA, among others, and is frequently quoted in press and industry journals. Anna Chan, welcome to Programmatic Untangled.
Thanks, Harry. Thank you very much for your introduction.
So, Anna, I'm wondering sometimes when you look back over the things you've accomplished in this industry, if you have time to smell the roses, as they say, because sometimes when you look back at for a couple of days ago, it's hard to measure progress. But when you look back over years and decades of experience, you can really sit back and take a good look at what you've accomplished in your career.
Well, yeah, certainly it's not a short period of time, but I was really grateful that I could get into this digital industry early. So I first started by joining Yahoo in Hong Kong. So that's how I started my digital career. And thereafter, working not only for the publisher side, but also getting involved in the agency side. So I have seen, from where selling online spaces to evolving, to other areas of digital, may it be search, especially within programmatic, where the ecosystem is just more complicated, and there are many components to it. So I feel like I'm learning something new every day, maybe on the publisher side, the supply side, meaning, or the demand side, or the DMP. So I think I'm really grateful that I'm part of the programmatic industry, and I'm also, learning together with my team, and hopefully to create more meaningful conversation with our clients, and giving them our perspective as to how we can best leverage programmatic advertising, and how is it evolving, and just utilizing more of programmatic in their day-to-day advertising.
Do you remember the first time you heard the term programmatic?
Wow, that was probably back in 2010 or 2009. At that point of time, I was still working for one of the agencies, and I was actually then approached by my previous boss at Yahoo. He started a company, and at that point of time, they actually set up their own programmatic platform for trading. That was the time where he wanted me to join his company. Then I was, at that point of time, actively involved in programmatic ever since. It's just evolving so rapidly. For somebody who wants to get into this field, if you are forever curious, if you are forever wanting to learn new things, programmatic is something that you do want to learn more.
So how would you differentiate the state of programmatic for SEA versus other markets in APAC and other regions?
I think programmatic in SEA definitely is still in its early stage. I can see marketers increasing their spend and started to shift dollar into programmatic. But if you look at the absolute spend on programmatic in SEA is still relatively compared to more mature markets like Australia or like China, Japan, not to mention if we are comparing other region like the US or EMEA. I can see that more and more advertisers started to spend on programmatic. And I think other than just looking at the spend, it's also worth to look at how they are utilizing programmatic, meaning that are they maximizing the benefit of programmatic? Obviously, programmatic is not only about buying in open exchange, or in some advertisers' mind, they still think of programmatic as, via a platform, we buy those remnant inventory, but we have evolved since then. I think if we look at programmatic, it's more about combining like data and technology, and how can we help our advertisers to reach their consumer more effectively. Is via technology. We can automate a lot of things. And more importantly is how do we gather data and be able to analyze the data, activate the data so that we can create, or how we can deliver a right message to the right audience at the right time. So I think when it comes to realizing the real benefit of programmatic, I think in Southeast Asia it's still at its infant stage, and there's a lot more that we could do for our advertisers. But currently we are still at quite an early stage at the moment.
If you had to point to something, Anna, as a reason for why maybe programmatic adoption is slower in Southeast Asia, are there a couple of things that come to mind?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot is to do with the understanding of programmatic. From our interaction with a lot of the advertisers, they heard about programmatic. They always think that programmatic is actually very technical. And I have to confess that when I first started to interact with clients explaining programmatic, I also ran into a trap where I make it very technical, because the fact that when it comes to programmatic, the ecosystem is just more complex. So they feel that, programmatic is very technical. I don't have the technical expertise to even understand it. And so they see it as like an obstacle to using programmatic. Yeah, I heard about it, but yeah, I don't have time to do it or understand it now, maybe later. I think that's something to do with the understanding of programmatic. Another thing that comes to mind is in the market, there are a lot of news about programmatic not being very transparent. So some of the advertisers, they still have quite a traditional mindset. So when it comes to advertising, they feel more comfortable, for example, utilizing traditional media like TV or out of home. This is something that they will be able to see when the ad appear. So I have clients where when we try to explain programmatic, it's more about audience targeting. Then, of course, the first question that came up is, when am I going to see my ad? Because they're very used to going to that particular site and they see the ad. They very much wanted to get a screen cap from us to demonstrate that, hey, our ad actually appears somewhere. So I think this is still a mindset that it takes time to gradually change from a site buying to audience targeting or audience buying. So I think that's also something that came up to their mind, is that they don't have a lot of control and it's not very transparent. But in reality, when we talk to our advertiser, we actually being very transparent and explain to them that this is what you will get. Ultimately, I think if they realize what's the real benefit, ultimately how is it going to drive business outcome or results for them, they're very willing to try programmatic. We have to set the expectation right. It's not something that, I'm going to try it for 1 week, but ultimately there has to be a of period we recommend in order to achieve the result. I think it's still a lot of education needed, but my experience that once we got a chance to explain the benefit, and when they're willing to take the first step to try, we see the retention rate being very high because these are the insights and data that we can gather in which they are not able to see from other channels, maybe search or the usual way of buying display. So transparency as well as the lack of understanding, I think, will be the top two when it comes to the obstacle of using a programmatic in SEA.
You mentioned also, Anna, this idea of education. Do you see that there's an increase in educational resources in the Southeast Asia region so that people have a better understanding and have a place to go to when they do want to learn more?
I think a lot of the advertisers, obviously, there are different ways for them to understand more about programmatic, maybe via their agency partners. From the technology partner side, I think they are also doing a lot to help educate the advertisers or marketers about programmatic. Sometimes we at Density Agents Network also partner with technology company to provide training for our advertisers or clients. So I think there are different content materials that are there. The more that the clients understand about programmatic, the more they are willing to adapt or adopt programmatic. So I think definitely they stand more. So we at the agency side always create these like education program for our clients, as well as partnering with technology company to actually provide that education. There are obviously different like online materials that are available that they can also tap into to have a better understanding. So I think this is something that as an industry, we need to work together to provide and educate our clients. The more they understand, obviously, the higher the adoption we will be able to see.
When it comes to the advertisers in Southeast Asia, are they mostly performance or branding advertisers?
In Southeast Asia, I would say more is still toward branding awareness type of objective. When it comes to performance, I think there are some limitations. For example, on the publisher side, some of the sites might not be loading fast enough. So imagine if I want to go to this site and purchase something or download a form or fill in a lead form, and if it takes a long time to load, obviously it changes people's behavior. And also when it comes to performance type of campaign, obviously there are a lot of data that we can gather when it comes to online advertising. But with the data, you needed somebody who is able to analyze the data. And I think digital talent is always a big challenge in Southeast Asia. There aren't sufficient digital talent in those markets. So without those talents who are able to actually analyze the data and make the right investment decisions, I think that's also one of the obstacles when it comes to driving those performance campaigns. I think that's going to take some time. But having said that, I think when the infrastructure, when the talent pool started to eventually grow and expand, we'll see more and more performance type of campaign happening in Southeast Asia. But at the moment, more toward branding awareness type of objective or campaigns.
Thank you for that explanation. I'm wondering if you could talk about outcomes goal, like where we're basing the outcome on a goal versus just pure branding and awareness. Do you see that there's a push and a pull between companies trying to decide which approach to take?
Yeah, from what I can see, it depends on the nature of the business. For companies where maybe they might be, focusing more on the performance-based or goal-based kind of campaigns, I think at the same time they still need to put considerable effort. I think as a marketer, they need to look at both goal-based as well as awareness and branding effort. It's an integrated effort that could bring or achieve the ultimate ROI. So I think when it comes to working with our advertisers, obviously there are some campaigns where it's very much focused on goal-based. It might be more tactical campaign, but a lot of time we realize that in order to get that goal or like a performance or an action, we definitely need to also spend effort on building the brand and the awareness. So it's almost like a funnel where on the top you always have the prospecting or the awareness that you need to build. Then finally you also get to the bottom of the funnel where you actually get that action. But it's not something that you just focus on one or the other. From the path to analysis or the path to last action, we are able to see that it is actually part of the overall funnel. So the effort needs to be made, on both awareness as well as focusing on just like a goal-based campaign.
What are the hesitations with clients that you face when it comes to investing more in programmatic? What are their key concerns?
I think it's a lot to do with setting clients' expectation. I think a lot of the clients, they might have a mindset that, hey, programmatic, because of the data, will have like immediate results, and the expectation is certainly very high.
Can you dive a little bit deeper on this idea of transparency? Because it's something you mentioned earlier, and I'm wondering if you could expand on that.
Sure. I think compared to traditional media where a lot of the advertisers, they are more familiar with, they're able to see and refer back to the spot that they invest in. They seem to be less transparent or less straightforward. I have spoken to marketers in my previous role where it's not unusual to hear stories where, marketers booking an outdoor spot that the CEO will pass by, right? So they will be able to see where there is advertiser or we've done advertising that's more apparent to them. Mm-hmm. So I think when it comes to programmatic, they see that as less transparent because they don't know where their ads would appear and all that. I think definitely this is something that we try to explain or educate our client, especially that I think there's a trend where we see more and more advertisers instead of or in addition to just advertising within what we call the open exchange. We can see when it comes to programmatic, more and more investments being shifted to what we call a private marketplace, where there is more control in terms of where your ad would appear. Obviously, we also started to look into or buy like programmatic guaranteed inventory. So imagine it's almost like a direct buy, but it's executed via programmatic, and we'll be able to cherry pick impression, gather a lot of the data about the user, and be able to optimize the campaign on the go. Transparency definitely is more set in a lot of clients' mind that when it comes to programmatic, it's just not very transparent. I don't have much control. But in reality, we've come a long way where we are able to actually purchase premium inventory. And a lot of time we try to discover what inventory is most beneficial for our clients. Typically with the use of data management platform and with the campaign that we do for our client, we are able to pull out data like when it comes to this performance campaign, which are the sites that are most like perform the best, or when it comes to the converters, people who actually purchase something, where do they go online, which sites, how much time they spend, and all these information are available via the DMP. I think this is something that we have to come together and help educate our clients. Once they get into spending on programmatic, these are things that they are able to gather. Then they see the real benefit. Then back to your earlier question, they will be able to, or they think that it will be more justified to shift more spend into programmatic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You touched upon the topic of education, and we kicked off this podcast with Elise James de Cruz. We had an interesting conversation in episode 1 about education and how it's important and how it relates to programmatic. And I'm wondering if we could talk a little bit about that here, because it sounds like it's an ongoing concern across the industry. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about education and about talent specifically as well.
Absolutely. Talent is always a big challenge in Asia, especially in Southeast Asia. Obviously, Amnet is a programmatic agency within Dentsu Aegis network. We are the programmatic advocate or expertise within the network. But I think it's very important that we actually have all the employees within the agencies to also have that knowledge so that they can also help educate their clients. And it's an ongoing education. So I think definitely it's an ongoing effort. And again, it's not only within Amnet. Is something that we need to make sure that all of our employees, including the executive team, they also need to have a good understanding of programmatic so they can actually have a meaningful conversation with the advertiser, with the clients, as well as internal with the employees. So I think one of the efforts, for example, that we have done within the executive team was we actually partner with Media Math NMI to come up with a program specifically for C-level executive within Dentsu Aegis network, where we talk about the overall landscape, challenges, case studies. Even at the executive level, they understand, what's the real benefit of programmatic, and started to have more meaningful conversation with our clients. So I think it's an ongoing effort, and I can see that, not only within our agency group or our media group, within other media group, they are also doing similar program. I think this is a time where we all have to come together and help educate our clients. At the same time, I can see that in a lot of the industry events, they started to have more and more sessions just covering programmatic. I think that's a very good sign that they realize that more and more marketers wanted to understand more about programmatic. And throughout those events, there are also like workshops that they conduct for some of the marketers who attend the event. And at the same time, I think in terms of the different awards that we can enter, again, there are more and more specific awards just for programmatic, for advertisers to get involved. We are able to generate more and more good cases when it comes to utilizing programmatic. That would also serve as like a stimulus for a lot of the advertisers to at least try to understand and start using programmatic. And hopefully with that ongoing education, we'll be able to see more good work when it comes to leveraging data, technology, or programmatic creative to deliver better messaging to our end user or consumer.
I get the sense that you are hopeful when you see the direction that all this education that's becoming available is happening in the programmatic space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think ultimately when it comes to marketing, I think marketing is all about driving business results by using insights and data. So when it comes to how can I more effectively communicate to my consumer or people who are interested in my product, or create that one-on-one, one-to-one conversation, definitely there has to be use of technology in order to do that. That's the reality. And I think a lot of the advertisers started to realize that. And that's why we can see a paradigm shift when it comes to some of the industries, whereas like travel, insurance, in the past, 10, 20 years with the online digital their business model has totally changed. And I think it has to happen if we need that efficiency, if we need that effectiveness to communicate to end user. It has to be through data, technology, programmatic. So I'm hopeful, definitely, when more advertisers started to try and understand, we are able to deliver the business results that they are looking for.
Definitely makes it seem like the future is definitely brighter and there's a lot of potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a very optimistic person.
When you think about an ideal conversation with clients, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I think earlier I mentioned the client that we interact mostly from marketing. As I mentioned earlier, it's all about driving business results by using insights and data. So I hope that the ideal conversation will be, when it comes to driving business results, how programmatic can actually help realize the goal, how we can help clients realize the real benefit of data-led marketing, or what I call Programmatic 2.0. What data we can gather, how we analyze the data, activate the data. I can share maybe a couple examples of how we work with our clients to actually activate their data and what does that mean when it comes to driving business results. So we work with one of the sports goods companies worldwide. What we do is they are driving, or they want to actually increase sales via their e-commerce site. So what we have done is they are utilizing our data management platform, Amnet Audience Center. What we have done also is to build a dashboard. So within the dashboard itself, it has all the data related to the campaigns that they have run, data that we are able to see from the data management platform. So things like what's the peak time where conversion happens, who are the people visiting, who are the people who convert, what time do they convert, which sites do these converters go. We have all these information so that we can do a deep dive and analyze those data. So we'll be able to, provide like a site analysis and tell them that, hey, based on the past month data, I think this is where you should advertise in terms of different sites. Or typically the profile of the people who convert or buy something within your e-commerce sites of a certain profile. So based on that, we'll be able to try to extend that audience by looking or purchasing those similar audience via third-party data pool. So you can imagine that we can try to extend that audience pool, or what we call audience extension, so that we can try to find more people, similar to the converters who are more likely to convert. So things like that is what I mean by data-led marketing. And I think in SEA, there's a lot of potential, even though it's not like a e-commerce focused kind of client, but even for clients where they want to promote their brand, we can still make use of data to decide or let them know more about, who are the people who resonate more with their brand. So, this is, one example I think is quite interesting, more performance type. Another example that I do want to share is one of the toy manufacturer where they want to actually target kids. And obviously, online targeting kids, so we have to be really, really careful because, of the different COPPA guidelines that we have to follow. So with this particular advertiser, what they want to do is promote a new product range that they're rolling out, in which they have zero awareness in this region. So the aim was to tell the story behind this new product to relevant audiences, and also encourage download of the game app to eventually drive desire for this particular new product range. So what we have done is the direct targeting audience is actually under 13. What we have done is we actually do it via contextual targeting and placement that are relevant or finding relevant inventory to reach this target audience. So with Amnet, we actually have what we call Spectrum, which is our premium marketplace. So with this premium marketplace product, we actually created what we call an exclusive publisher partnership for this client. So comprising of a mix of popular site as well as top mobile gaming application that will fit this particular campaign target audience, which is approved by the client. And of course, it's everything following the rule. So this will allow delivery of ads that's within kids' relevant environment. So the results is actually quite amazing. I think overall, we are able to achieve cost per view that was up to like 60%. And also below our cost per view benchmark. And in terms of view through rate, is actually 80% exceeded our original target. So the overall campaign actually contributed to the overall APAC region. Actually, it achieved one of the highest place and mobile app downloads globally. So again, via use of programmatic, we are able to, number one, tap into premium inventory that exists in the market. Number two, leverage the data and activate the data so that we can drive higher performance for our clients. So, of course, these are things that we need to make sure that the client is aware of, and we be transparent when it comes to the campaign data, what they can get, what are things that we can activate. And I think, overall, if we have that agreement and expectation set, again, as I mentioned, a lot of time, if we do it right, our clients are more than willing to actually spend more on programmatic. But again, it's more about delivering better business results for our clients. So hopefully with these two examples, that will also better demonstrate what we can do with programmatic.
Yeah, they definitely do. And it's really obvious to hear your excitement about programmatic, the fact that it's come such a long way in the Southeast Asia region, but that there's still a long ways to go and there's room for improvement. And I'm wondering if you think about looking forward, no one has a crystal ball, but what are some of the things that you see happening in the space from your viewpoint within the next couple of years?
Definitely what we can see even happening now is programmatic expanding to other traditional media channel, maybe outdoor, radio. We have already executed like programmatic TV or radio campaign on behalf of our clients. I think in the next 2-3 years more, when it comes to expanding to media, all digital advertising will be programmatic in some way. So programmatic, whether we still want to use this term, maybe we can actually use the term automation instead. That really confirms the importance of understanding that all digital advertising is going to be automated. Obviously, I think from data-led marketing, what I call programmatic 2.0, hopefully that's going to evolve further to what I call programmatic 3.0, which is people-based marketing, where instead of marketing to a unknown persona or unknown person, we are able to market to a known individual. So it's all about mastering highly targeted, personalized marketing driven. And this is going to be driven by insights informed by robust customer database. And we are able to build that one-to-one relationship and delivering hyper local like messages throughout the customer life cycle. This is across the entire spectrum of media and channels. From 2.0 to 3.0, if we can realize that people-based marketing, obviously that's going to, as consumer, get ready to have that one-to-one conversation with marketers. But I think there's still a lot that needs to be done before we can evolve to that stage. Obviously, it starts from the top of the management where they see that as a need, then gradually also changing mindset of everybody within the organization. And there probably needs to be some restructuring, the way that the planning infrastructure, how can we, for example, integrate campaign tactics and the data that informs them, right? So I think not to mention having the right platforms that could help during the whole process. And obviously people who are driving the platforms. So I'm hopeful that this is going to happen sometime in the future. It might take a bit more time in SEA, but I think if we can get first the data-led marketing or the client realizing the full potential of programmatic, I think next is going to be Programmatic 3.0, the data or the people-based marketing.
Well, it definitely sounds like there's a lot of opportunities available. And it seems like, what's happening in the States and other regions, they tend to lead by example. So I think when you see innovations happening there, I would imagine that they tend to inspire that same innovation to be happening in SEA.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you look at the overall digital industry in APAC region, well, it first started in the US, EMEA, then into APAC. And within APAC, it's always the likes of Australia, China, Japan, leading that, followed by the rest of the Hong Kong, SEA, Taiwan. But I think as the infrastructure continue to improve, we will be able to see more and more faster adoption when it comes to new technology. Again, that makes it more exciting for people who want to get into this space. And that's why I'm still here doing what I'm doing. But again, I'm hopeful that, later, maybe 1 year later, I'm sure we'll be having very different conversations.
So Anna, thank you so much for taking the time to come on to Programmatic Untangled. It's been an interesting discussion, and it's nice to have the perspectives of the people working in programmatic from the different regions, because they all come at it from their personal experience and from their time spent in programmatic. And I think all the viewpoints are important to listen to and to learn from as well, because I'm sure there's learnings that can happen in the States and APAC that are happening in SEA. And I think everyone is helping each other, and a rising tide lifts all boats. So I really thank you for coming on and sharing your perspective.
Well, thank you very much, Harry. I certainly enjoyed the conversation. If any of the listeners want to continue this conversation, you can reach me at my email, anna.chan@amnetgroup.com. We can continue the conversation. As I mentioned, I'm also learning day to day, and I'm sure through interactions with more people within the industry, definitely we'll be able to accelerate programmatic a lot faster.
Yes, I totally agree. And I want to thank you again for taking the time. I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you, Harry.
So thanks again to Anna for taking the time to come on the show. For more information, head on over to Programmatic Untangled for the complete list of current and past episodes, including this conversation with Anna. With each episode, we publish a detailed show notes page with highlights from the interview, along with any links mentioned in the episode. Tune in next month for another engaging conversation with Alice Lincoln, MediaMath's Vice President of Data Policy and Governance.